Good evening, everyone. I see everyone starting to trickle in. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight's webinar, Feel at Home on the Hill. So when the Council on Advocacy was putting together tonight's webinar, we wanted it to be beneficial for all of our members, whether it's your first time joining us in Washington, D.C., or you're a pro. We want to help you get acquainted with what to expect when you join us in Washington. So we'll be talking about what to bring, what the issues are, what happens after DC. Our panelists all have it covered. So before we get right into it, I'd like to introduce you to our panelists for tonight. Alrighty, for tonight we will be joined by Rana, who will be talking to us about how to prep / the issue review. Rana is a District 8 and 9 legislative coordinator coming from UT Houston. Our next presenter will be Anisha. Anisha is the legislative coordinator for Districts 1, 2, and 3 from Boston, and she is also the Speaker of the House for 2019 to 2020. And finally, Tassine will wrap it up with congressional meetings, so what to expect afterwards. She is coming from Roseman, and she is Districts 10 and 11 legislative coordinator. We're also joined tonight by staff, Keely O'Sullivan-Kurtz and Stephanie Follett. So we have a lot of information we'll be throwing at you tonight, but we also want to give you the opportunity to ask us questions. So we'll take questions at the very end after we've presented the 3 parts. You can ask your question directly. You can type your question into the area on the control panel that's outlined in red, and we'll be answering questions in the order that they are asked. If we aren't able to get to your question in time, don't worry, we'll be able to provide you with an answer and we'll send it to you. All right, with that, I am gonna hand it over to Rana, who's gonna let you know how to prep and also talk to you about the issues.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to prep an issue review for Lobby Day. So first things first, you need a place to stay. So our hotel this year is a Washington Hilton. So just make sure, double check with your chapter that they have rooms booked. All sessions for Sunday and Monday will be happening in the same hotel. So in other words, you won't really have to travel for anything besides Tuesday when we go to the Capitol. Interesting fact about this hotel, it's where the site of assassination attempt of Ronald Reagan in 1981, so something interesting. If you're still trying to book, you should contact Stephanie, our Director of Strategic Initiatives, and she's on the call. It's past deadline at this point, but if you have any issues or any problems, you can contact her. So that's our first thing. Second thing, business cards. So what to bring? So items to bring with you to DC when you come to Lobby Day. So something beneficial, business cards. So you'll be able to hand them to congressional staff when you arrive at their offices on Tuesday. It's also a good contact for between you and other dental students or other dentists. So it's good in general. So if you have them, just bring them with you. Don't forget them. So put them on the to-do list for packing. Second thing that I'll talk about, things to bring. So clothes. So what to wear, especially if it's your first time and you don't know. So for Sunday, we do have a reception, so it's casual attire. This year, we're going to wear clothing items to support your favorite baseball team. So whichever baseball team you support, just bring something, a jersey or even a hat, anything that you like. And then for Monday, there's a yoga class in the morning. So if you're a fan of workout, just bring workout clothes. It's optional, you don't have to, but it's something to bring, put on your list for packing. During the sessions on Monday, you're going to be wearing business attire, so bring something to wear for that day. And then Tuesday, it's also going to be a business attire. Flats are highly encouraged instead of heels. There will be a lot of walking, so I'm pretty sure everyone agrees on this, especially if you've been. Just make sure you bring some comfortable shoes with you to walk in. Next thing, so some extras. It has rained in the past, so if you would like to bring an umbrella, Portfolio is sometimes useful when you're walking on Tuesday in the Hill and you have a lot of handouts with you. It could be beneficial. Again, it's not required. Something could be beneficial for you, and it looks professional. And always just look professional, presentable, polished. Look like you want to be taken seriously. You're visiting congressmen, and don't forget you're representing the whole entire association. So here are some pictures from previous years. So this is Sunday, so this is pretty much what you would wear, casual attire. This is Sunday, that's the reception, so that's what it's going to look like, similar to that. This is Monday, so everybody's wearing business attire. If you really want to wear heels, that's the day to do that. Here is Tuesday, so when you're in the Capitol, business attire, make sure you're looking professional. A lot of girls are wearing heels. That's more comfortable for you. There will be a lot of walking between buildings. These are some more pictures. Okay, so congressional appointments. So when you register to attend Lobby Day, you should have gotten an email with another link. And when you click on that link, it will finalize your registration to where you enter the state and the state you're wanting to go to their legislators. So once you do that, your congressional appointments will be set for you. So it's either by state or by ADA, and that's depending on what state you're from. So when you're at Lobby Day, you'll get a paper with all the appointments. When you do the registration, when you pick up your packet, and so that's how you know who you're going to. And if you still have any questions about appointments, or if you would like to change something, you would like to go to a different state than what you put in that form, feel free to contact Keely, and she's also on the call as well. And that's her email provided there. So next thing we'll talk about. So if you haven't seen this in an email from Sarah Milligan, here it is. So pre-calls. So what that is, Okay, going back to this. Okay, so these are pre-calls organized by state. So the purpose of that is just to allow attendees to prepare to explain the issues and ask questions before arriving to DC. So this is set by district. So the dates and the times are listed, and it starts on April 1st and goes on until April 4th. You must register for your call, so you can't just show up. So you have to register, and these are found in emails sent by Sarah Milligan. She sends emails every Tuesdays. If you haven't been able to get those emails, let us know. We'll try to troubleshoot for you. Okay. The next thing we'll talk about, so this year we have 3 issues that we're bringing up, and also if you need to find the handouts for these issues, they're also sent in those emails that Sarah Milligan sends, so feel free to look for that as well. So just a little quick overview. So the first one we have is the McCarran and Ferguson repeal for health insurance, and so pretty much it will help to inject more competition in the insurance marketplace by authorizing greater federal antitrust enforcement. And the next one will be the dental student debt, so Student Loan Programs and Higher Education Act. And so there are many principles, many ways on how to reduce student loans. And so, for example, one of them is advocating to extend deferment period and halt the interest. So there are many ways on how to do that, and they all in accordance with the ASA F4 policy. And you can find them all listed in bullet points in the handouts that Sarah Milligan sent. The next one is the Ensuring Lasting Smiles Act, the ELSA. So as in support of this bill, it would require private groups and individual health plans to cover medically necessary services resulting from a congenital anomaly or birth defect. So, for example, cleft lip, cleft palate, any skeletal maxillofacial deformities. And so these deformities interfere with ability to breathe or speak. And so since these procedures are reconstructive in nature, many insurance companies consider those to be cosmetic. And so that's what we'll be lobbying for this year, to include those dental work in their insurances. The other thing, so when you come to Lobby Day, there will be a directory of all the congressmen when you pick up your packet at registration. If you go to the back of it, you'll see which committee your legislator serves on. So that will be something useful to know if your congressman is likely to support this legislation, so something to look for. And also be familiar with the issues when you come. Look over them, ask us any questions if you have any, and also we will go over them during lobby day. So if you still have more questions, those can be answered at that point. So here's something I find useful, especially if it's your first time. So here's a map of the U.S. Capitol. As you can see, the House buildings are across from the Senate building. And so I circled the numbers so you know which one we'll be mainly at. So we'll be mainly at 1, 2, 3, and 8, 9, 10. And so as you can see, there is some walking involved. So make sure you're comfortable in your shoes, in your clothes. You'll do some walking. If it's raining, an umbrella will be useful going from the House to the Senate. And also these maps will be provided during lobby day, so don't worry about sitting and focusing too much about it. The other thing, here it is again, I've boxed for you. So the top ones, the top box, that's the Senate buildings, and the bottom, these are the House. They are all, so the House buildings, they're connected by tunnels. So when you come in, you'll go through security. Sometimes there's a line, there's a long line. And so if you want to avoid that line, just go through the tunnel between the buildings instead of going outside and going to the other buildings. So that's some tips, especially if it's your first time, something to know. And so these things, we will go over those during lobby day. So inside the House, so you will see the congressman's name and what office they're in. So the first digit identifies the building. So if it's a 3-digit number, that's Cannon. If it's 4 digits, starting with a 1, that's Longworth. And if it's 4 digits starting with a 2, that's Rayburn. So the next number indicates the building floor, and the last 2 numbers indicate the office. And so I put some example there for 2255, so that's 4 digits starting with a 2, so that's Rayburn. And then that second number 2 is second floor, and then the last one, that's the office number. So things like that. And don't worry about knowing those. We will have a strategy lunch on Monday. And so at that point, you will plan your congressional appointments. You'll know what offices they're at, and then you can map out where you will be going. But this was just a little clarification, just to use as a reference for later. And the last thing for me to go over, so transportation will be provided to the House and the Senate office buildings to the Capitol by buses on Tuesday. There will be a DC Lobby Day app. The app is really helpful, and it's a good resource for you to know the sequence of events, what's coming up next, what has started. You can also view the handouts on there. So it's pretty useful. So keep checking for emails for more details closer to the date as it comes by. And then another fun fact to mention, the 2019 National Cherry Blossom Festival is March 20th till April 14th. So the Sunday we arrive is the last day. So if you arrive early in the morning or earlier days, make sure you check it out. It's something cool. And then next, I'll hand it over to Anisha to continue with the conference agenda for more information.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Anisha. So I'm going to go over the conference agenda so you know what events and training you can look forward to over the course of 3 days. So most of you will arrive on Sunday. That's when registration will be open. It will also be open Monday morning. So for those of you that are unable to get in on Sunday, it still will be available on Monday. So don't stress about that. That's where you'll pick up your name tag as well as like a tote bag. And within that tote bag is where you'll find a bunch of the materials that Rana had mentioned. So you'll get the maps in there, you'll get the issue cards, you'll get a lot of hard copies of the information that will be discussed. After that, there is going to be an advocate training session. So this session is open to both dentists and students. It's going to teach advocates, you know, how to kind of tell your story. So it's a great talk that is going to be presented by the AdPAC board and the Public Affairs Council. However, it is optional. So if you're getting in a little later or aren't able to make it, again, don't stress, it's optional. There still will be other training provided throughout the next day. So finally, then we have the welcome reception on Sunday. This is a really fun event. As Rana mentioned, the attire is going to be supporting your favorite baseball team. So it's a great networking event. You can either connect with your favorite teams or just your passion for organized dentistry, because I know you all are very passionate about it. So next on Monday, this is where we're kind of going to get to the meat of everything. So there's going to be a lot of other events going on, but these three are some of the main ones that you will want to look forward to help kind of prepare you for these congressional appointments. So the first one is going to be the issue review. Again, you're going to have hard copies of the materials so you can take notes on them if you feel like it. They will have everything provided on them, so you don't need to add anything extra unless you feel you want to. But this will be presented by the ADA and CGA members, and they're going to give an in-depth analysis of the issues that will be presented at congressional meetings. So there will be like a brief question and answer session then. So it's nice to go over this with the dentists that will be there so that you can see their perspective of it as well. You can feel free to participate, ask any questions at all. This is really where we can prepare and really get to know the issues well. So after that is going to be how to meet with your member of Congress. So this is going to be a live demonstration on how to execute the meeting. So we have like a brief format, an opening, a closing, kind of what to say when you're at the meeting, which Justine will go over momentarily. But this is going to be a live demonstration on how to go about that. And again, you're free to ask any questions at all. So then after that, you're going to have a networking and strategy lunch. So once you've learned these issues and how to present them, you'll be grouped by state delegation. So whichever state you signed up to participate with, you'll be given a room number or a location where you'll meet with those dentists and other students that are part of that as well. And you can plan and strategize the meeting. So here's where you'll want to decide who's going to speak and when, who's going to introduce the bill. Will it be students? Will it be dentists? Are there, particular issues that students should definitely speak on or dentists should definitely speak on? So this is where you can have more of that free conversation and really get to planning how you want to execute your meeting. So there are also going to be some other events on Monday, which I just want to touch upon. So there's going to be a bunch of keynote speakers, which are very exciting. They're very enlightening. Last year's speakers were really, really entertaining to listen to. So this year, we're going to have Senator Kelly Ayotte, who is the state senator for New Hampshire. And we're also going to have Patty Solis Doyle, who was the senior advisor to Obama's presidential campaign. So some different perspective there. And then we're also going to have Rear Admiral Timothy Ricks, who is the Assistant Surgeon General and Chief Dental Officer of the U.S. Public Health Service. So we have some really great speakers that are coming. It's really beneficial and very interesting to listen to what they have to say. So now on Tuesday, this is going to be what you guys are all waiting for. So the start of the day is going to be a breakfast, and at the breakfast there's going to be an award ceremony. We can recognize a lot of our fellow students, among others that have really shown some really great leadership. It's a really exciting time. We'll also have Representative Drew Ferguson and Representative Jeff Van Drew that will be speaking during the breakfast, so that'll be interesting as well. And then after breakfast, everyone's going to head over to either the House or the Senate building, depending on your appointment, where you'll be going first. So just some key pointers very generally to think about on Tuesday. Know the issues. So you can definitely do your homework beforehand, but we will be going over them again during lobby day. So don't worry, don't be nervous. But once you're at lobby day, definitely make sure to ask questions and know the issues really well. Plan and strategize the meeting. So Tessine is going to go over these step-by-step so you can get a good idea, but organization is really key to having a successful meeting. So you want to make sure you capitalize on that time during the networking lunch and make sure everyone feels very confident, because confidence is key, and even if you don't know anything, it's all right. Just make sure that you're able to communicate what you do know very well. All right, so now I'm going to hand it over to Tazeen, who's going to go over the congressional meeting.
Hi guys, I'm Tazeen. So I'm just going to go over kind of the flow of the congressional meeting and then some meeting follow-up. So just kind of jumping off of what Anisha said, it's really important to plan and strategize. So depending on how your team has strategized, one person can introduce everyone or everyone can introduce themselves. Introductions can include anything from where you're from, what school you go to, if you have a personal connection to the congressman or their staffer. And kind of going off of that, it's really important to know who you're speaking to. Sometimes you're speaking to the congressman directly, but a lot of the times you're talking to the staffer. But either way, they're equally important, and that's really good to understand that both parties have great influence over these issues. When you're introducing the bill, it's really important to introduce the bill specifically. For example, if we were discussing the READY Act, I would say I'm discussing HR 1554 and kind of go from there. It's really important to relate the bill back to the legislature. So again, like Anisha and Rana said, it's really important to do your homework. Research what committees they're on, research their past voting record, and kind of know their state demographics and know how this bill will benefit their constituents. So telling your story, super important. A lot of congressmen don't know dentistry, and it's difficult for them to visualize how these issues affect us on the day-to-day. So it's really important that we illustrate that in our stories. For example, if I were to discuss HR 1554, the READY Act, that's the Resident Education Deferment Interest Act, I could say hypothetically, hello, like I'm from rural Southwest Virginia. I'm really interested in working with vulnerable pediatric populations in that area. I'll be doing a pediatric residency for 3 years. However, my interest on my student loans will be accruing over those years. Unfortunately, I don't know if it will still be financially feasible to work in these areas afterwards. So something along those lines, really showing them how you connect with this bill. So the ask. So after you've introduced the bill and you've made that connection, there will be questions. It's really great that we go and lobby with our state dental associations because sometimes the dentists can help answer some of these questions. But if you are asked a question directly and you don't know the answer to it, it's really important to be honest and say that you'll follow up with an answer. It's also really important to ask if they'd be willing to co-sponsor the bill. Some will say yes, some will say no. If they agree to co-sponsor the bill, it's good just to say thank you and leave it at that. If they say no, it's really important to kind of go a little bit further and ask them what their reservations or concerns might be, and definitely follow up. So the finale, kind of to wrap up, obviously it's really good to thank them for their time because it's such a privilege to be able to sit with them and discuss issues that impact us, but also to recap the meeting. So really brief, maybe 15 to 30 seconds, just kind of go over the highlights of what was discussed. You know, if it was a good conversation, talk about some of the positives. If they had concerns or reservations about co-sponsoring a bill, bring that up briefly and say that you'll follow up. Really important to get their contact information, both for the congressman and the staffer you might have talked to, and to exchange your business card as well. So now that we've kind of gone through the general flow of the meeting, it's really important, like Anisha said, to designate roles and have some structure. So in doing that, you'll be able to facilitate a really pointed and efficient meeting that way. And you guys can switch off for each meeting that you have, so everyone gets a chance to participate. So it's really important to have an opener, someone who introduces the team members and the bill itself, a secretary, someone who's constantly taking notes on questions, concerns, also the person that might be designated to follow up after, and the closer, like we talked about, someone to really recap and bring it home and remind them of the key highlights of the meeting. And one thing I do want to mention, I think it's awesome that we're lobbying with our state dental associations, and because they have so much to contribute, but sometimes dental students can feel overshadowed by dentists. And I just want to encourage you guys to kind of speak up and kind of voice your concerns. Just because from personal experience, my state dental association is super receptive to us. If there's an issue that we're really passionate about or we want to take ownership of during the meeting, they've been more than willing to let us do that. So I encourage you guys to speak up and kind of just communicate that to them. So the follow-up, super important. Congressmen and staffers meet people every single day on lots of different issues. So it's really important to connect and follow up and remind them of the conversation that you had. So you receive their contact information. So reach out to the staff member or the congressman that you spoke with. And really this should be done within a few days of the meeting, at the latest a week. And there's a few different ways to do it. You can send a thank you email, or I think a handwritten note is really special as well. Some things to include. Comments about the legislation itself, and then be sure to reiterate ASDA's stance. And then if they had any reservations or concerns, or they had a question that you didn't know the answer to, please do include the answer and the follow-up on that as well. And again, be sure to thank them, because it's such a great opportunity to be able to speak to them. So you went to National Lobby Day, you're super excited, you have ASDA fever, and you wanna do more in your state. Two things to consider. It's really important to stay in touch with the congressman or the staffer that you talk to, and you have their contact information, and you can do that or start that with the follow-up. And it's also really important to stay in touch with your state dental association. On this slide here, I've included a little link. You can click on it, and you can click on your state, and it shows you your Senate, like representatives and senators. It shows you what bills have been introduced in your state and what bills have passed. It shows you committees and different people that sit on those committees. So it's a really neat little website, and I think it's worth your time just to kind of peruse. Again, stay in touch with your state dental association, because they're such a great resource to dental-related issues in your state if you have any questions or concerns. If there's an issue or a topic that you're really, really passionate about, I suggest kind of formulating your opinions and gathering your thoughts and kind of going through your district LL or your LC, and they can kind of help take you further. And then the last thing I want to talk about is ASDA Engage. For those that don't know, ASDA Engage allows us to send electronic alerts to our representatives. So the latest ASDA Engage alert is for the Resident Education Deferment Interest Act that I mentioned before, HR 1554. So if you go on to ASDA Engage, you can read about it a little bit. You can read about ASDA's stance. And when you click Take Action, you're able to put in your name, information, address, and it'll electronically, automatically generate a letter that will send to your representative. Super easy. And just a really great way to get involved. And I'll kind of kick it back to Lauren for any questions you guys might have.
Alrighty, guys. So any questions that you guys have, once again, feel free to go to the control panel and please type it in. We'll be taking questions in as they come in, all right? Okay, we have our first question. Thank you so much for doing this. Will we get a copy of the PowerPoint? That is a great question. Actually, the presentation will be on ASDANet by the end of this week. And I know that we have thrown a lot of information, really great tips from Tassine, Anisha, and Rana coming from their own experiences that we strongly encourage all participants coming to Lobby Day, whether it's your first time or you're a pro at this, please check out this presentation. Alrighty, our next question is, what if a congressperson asks a question that you don't have an answer to? I'm going to turn this back to our panelists for them to address this.
So I can take this question. I mentioned it briefly in the presentation, but if someone asks you a question and you don't know the answer to, it's really just important to be honest. Just say, I'm sorry, I don't know, but I can follow up with you, and be sure to get their contact information and actually follow up with an answer.
Thank you, Tassine. Our next question is, how many people typically attend each congressional meeting? I think, Anisha, your mic might be muted.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. So I think it depends on how many people sign up per state or per delegation. So they try and do an even spread based on the schedule itself of which appointments you have. So it really could be anywhere from 5 to 15. It really just depends on how many people sign up per state, because they want to make sure that there's an even amount at each appointment.
Thank you, Anisha. Our next question is, how can we research the issues that we will be discussing on Tuesday so that we are better prepared?
Okay, I can take this too. So there are emails, like Rana mentioned. I think there is one email that should now have most of the bills and the issues that have gone out. So if you've been receiving the emails, just do a quick search for Sarah Milligan. She's the one that sends out all of this information, and they're really great PDFs that have those issue cards laid out already. If you want some more information, there's also the issues that are posted on the ASDA website. So you can click those, you can look at the bills themselves and find more research information on there.
And that's a great question. The more preparation work that you do prior to coming to Washington, you'll be able to ask questions to the speakers and the reviewers of the issues on Monday's preparation kind of day. So, great question. Our next question is, should we expect to be in a meeting with one or two senators or someone from the House of Representatives, or could it be both?
I can take this one. So it really depends. It could be both. It could be only one of them. The House and the Senate meetings are separate, so you really could be in both, or you could be in only one of them. So that just depends on the state and how the meetings are distributed.
And that's another great thing about the preparation calls beforehand, is that it takes a lot of the scheduling. You'll be able to discuss with the individuals that you will be lobbying with a little bit of the logistics. As always, things kind of come together last minute, so we'll also have that strategy lunch on Monday. But you most likely will also be meeting with staffers who, as Tassine said, are just as important as meeting with the Congress people.
And honestly, a lot of the staffers are our age. They're a little bit younger, and I feel like sometimes you have a better personal connection with the staffers.
And they might even know more on the issue itself. They do a lot of the research, so being able to connect with them and kind of open up the issue a little bit more, and you might even get some more information on what the reservations are, and you can dive into that and discuss more of that. Or maybe they're like, this is great, like we're totally on board and we're going to support this, and that's just as good.
I remember one year that I went and we talked to the staffer and we kind of compared student debt, and they were like, oh my God, I had no idea that this is what dental students were facing. So you go kind of Congress members in my home state where I intend to practice. Is there also an opportunity to attend a meeting with different state representatives? For example, the state where I attend dental school.
So unfortunately, you can only meet with one state. There's a lot of organization and planning that goes into this just to make sure everyone can get to all of the meetings and all of the appointments are attended. So you can only meet with one state, and that's the delegation that you sign up for, or probably should have signed up for already.
I'm kind of on that boat. I go to school in Utah, but I tend to practice in Virginia, but I'll be lobbying with my Utah delegation just because I'm more familiar with those issues. So it's kind of up to you.
I would encourage, though, that if you aren't lobbying with the other state, try to find them during Sunday night's reception and any breaks that we may have. This event is the only time that we really get to interact with dentists. So it's a great networking opportunity, make those connections, and they're actually kind of life lasting. Our next question is, would it be possible for us to compile these questions in a document with the answers for anybody who would like to refer to them? I can take this question. We'd be more than happy to come up with this document. As I mentioned previously, we'll have this recording available with all of the tips from our pros here, our panelists, but we'd be more than happy to come up with a document with all of these questions that are asking. They're really great questions. Our next question is, what topics would not be kosher when meeting with a Congress member?
So when you guys are preparing for these congressional meetings, there's issues that have already been kind of picked for you that ASDA supports. So during these meetings, it's really important to kind of stick with that. Though, ASDA is like one voice. It's really important not to let your personal opinions kind of come in to these meetings, just because we're trying to stick to one clear message. It's also really important to be just like concise and efficient and just have a really pointed meeting, just because the staffers and congressmen don't have a lot of time. It's already such a privilege to be there with them.
Yeah, you'll find that the meetings tend to go kind of quickly. Like you'll sit down, you'll do introductions, you kind of get your points out, and then they're kind of already sometimes looking to wrap up. So you want to make sure, like Tessine was saying, just to be very concise so that you don't kind of dilute whatever message we're trying to get across, so that they know exactly where we're coming from and how they can, really help us.
And it comes in handy when planning the meeting with the dentist that you're going to on Monday during lunch, just to know what you're going to talk about, what each one will mention, and so just to be concise and stay on topic. So things that cannot be discussed, for example, campaign funds, that's just one example if you're looking for something that you cannot say.
This is really an opportunity for you to share your story or your dental school journey, you know, with the staffers, with the Congress people, but also with the dentists that you will be lobbying with. Many dentists want to know what it's like to be a dental student. So I encourage you to bring up your story, step out of your comfort zone, and allow them to kind of take a step into what it's like to be a dental student at this current moment. Our next question is, can you do an example, like a run-through, of how to introduce ELSA with Congress using the format given in the presentation? Sure, we'd be more than happy to do that. We're just going to have to move our slides to it so that you can see the format as well, and follow along with us. Alrighty, so I'll hand it over to our panelists to introduce the issue and do a little mock of what to expect. And as always, it will also be kind of like a mock how to speak to your congressperson the day on Monday during our preparation meetings.
Okay, I can start. I can just do a little quick mock. So, hello, I'm Rana. I'm fourth year dental student. I go to the UT School of Dentistry in Houston. So we set up ELSA. So one of our bills today is Ensuring Lasting Smiles Act, ELSA. So what that is as in support of this bill, where it would require all private groups and individual health plans to cover medically necessary services resulting from a congenital anomaly or birth defect. So these congenital anomalies like cleft lip, cleft palate, skeletal and maxillofacial deformities, and others, they interfere with a child's ability to breathe, speak. Since these procedures are reconstructive in nature and performed to correct abnormal structures of the body, many insurance companies consider them to be cosmetic. And while they may cover the first surgeries, they will delay or deny the follow-up corrective procedures, including dental work. And so when we are in dental school, we do see a lot of patients in specialties with cleft lip, cleft palate, these abnormalities, and we see how it affects their life. And so we would like your support on this bill. We'd like you to co-sponsor. And we would like to thank you so much for your time, for meeting with us, and for your consideration for that. Anybody would like to add anything?
I think that was a great example, really informative, because you'll find that sometimes they may not know too much about the bill. So I think, using layman's terms is really important as well. And then always ask them and say, do you have any questions? Is there anything more you'd like to know? And kind of going back to that point where if they ask a question that you don't know the answer to, sometimes that can almost be a blessing in disguise, in the sense that it opens more conversation. So you definitely have a reason to follow up. And when you follow up, you could say, hey, this was that question that you asked. Here are a couple links, or here's some more information about this bill, or about, congenital defects, or some more information to give you regarding the question you asked. So it kind of furthers your conversation a little bit more, which I think is always great.
And I also really
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I also really liked how Rana said, made that personal connection and said, we see these patients in our clinic. And with that, you can say, these aren't just cosmetic procedures. I've seen patients, and this has affected their health and well-being and their livelihood. So that's really important too. Sorry, Rana.
No, you're good. I was saying the same thing.
And if you don't really have, much experience with this, you definitely don't want to lie, but you can certainly do research ahead of time. So maybe if you see some of these issues is not something you really feel that you have personal experience with, you can always research and, maybe look up an example of a family that was denied coverage and what happened. And you could say, there's this family in New Jersey that I know, or there was this news article about this family and this is what happened, and you can explain that story. So while it may not be like a direct personal connection, it's still something that others can connect with and that you can tell more of a story to kind of articulate the bill in a different way.
And Rana did a great job with being concise and also breaking down the issue into something that is a little bit more manageable for someone to digest right away. Imagine these staffers are getting a lot of people coming in and out. So throwing kind of the wording and the jargon at them isn't as effective as breaking it down and letting them kind of understand and taking pauses and simplifying it so that they can actually ask questions and not just say, okay, yes, okay, next. Our next question is, will there be a program for us on site, as well as can you tell us more about the app for the event? So I can take this question. We will have a program, so our programming does include preparation, and then in terms of the app, the information for logging in, installing the app, that will be provided in future emails. It was mentioned in the presentation that on the app, it's going to be really comprehensive. It's going to have the issues, it's going to have agenda information, and it's going to be really useful for all participants to download that prior to coming to Washington. Alrighty, guys, I think we're gonna wrap it up for tonight. As we mentioned previously, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of planning that goes into Lobby Day. So as you discuss with your state delegation, with your chapters, and you come up with more questions on behalf of the Council on Advocacy, we welcome any questions, concerns that you may have prior to coming to Washington, D.C. Our goal for this event is for you to have the best lobbying experience. Whether it's your first or your fourth time coming. What's so great, as we've mentioned previously, is that this is an event for dental students and for dentists to come together. So we really encourage you to take this as an opportunity, make those connections, step out of your comfort zone, and you'll never know what you might get out of this experience. So we want your voices to be heard on the Hill, but also within our profession. So we are very excited to see everyone in Washington, D.C., and we wish you everyone safe travels as we see you up on the Hill. And thank you again for joining us, and have a wonderful night.